I'm spending 24 hours exploring Strasbourg, France. Now, Strasbourg sits on the border of France and Germany, which has shaped its incredible food and its fairy tale architecture. Plus, as a birdwatcher, I've noticed there's a lot of stork souvenirs around the place, so I'm here to figure out what that's all about. So let's spend 24 hours in Strasbourg. Subscribe. Now, this isn't just another top 10 things to do checklist. This is a 24-hour journey through the heart of France's most enchanting city. See, it sits on the border of France and Germany, and that is very apparent in its architecture and the food. Now, whether you're planning on doing a trip to Strasbourg or you've just heard of this real-life fairy tale, I'll show you my experience there. And after having just visited Paris, I can tell you this felt like another world. But just because it's unique, is there that much to actually do? Is Strasbourg really worth the visit? You see, it's a long trip to get there, so not knowing where to look, well, you might just walk straight past the very moments that make this city famous. So come with me to the markets, to explore the cathedral, which was once the world's tallest building, to try the French and German food. We'll stroll around Petite France, and hopefully we'll get to spot the mascot of the town, the stork. Subscribe for travel vlogs. Let's explore Strasbourg. Alright, here's an explanation in 5 seconds how I got there. I took the train from Paris to Strasbourg. It took about 2 hours to get there. It was a very nice train. Okay, let's get into it. So first, let me show you around the streets of Strasbourg. Now, there is a place in Strasbourg called La Petite France, which I definitely recommend visiting. And I have footage of that sprinkled in with footage of Strasbourg's town. So Petite France is a bit more touristy, as the locals don't really go there as much. It seems to be more, souvenir shops and stuff like that. But honestly, even Strasbourg itself is really beautiful and has these, typical fairy tale buildings that you think of. One thing I really loved when walking around is how you can see both the influence of France and Germany in the architecture and just pretty much everything you see. Before Strasbourg, I was in Paris, and you can see the influences of Paris. And I also went to Germany for a day trip, and you can see the influences of that as well here. And Strasbourg actually switched nationalities 4 times in 75 years, leaving it with this identity that's very layered and endlessly fascinating. I just absolutely loved the cobbled streets, the timber-framed houses, and every corner was just bursting with European charm. One thing that I was wondering is, would it kind of be one section that's the old town, and then the rest of it is super modern houses and stuff? But it's really not that, which is great to see. Strasbourg's old town is actually a UNESCO World Heritage site, so it's like walking through a living, breathing museum. Speaking of, Strasbourg actually has, I think it's 19 museums, and 11 of them are the city's museums, which has, arts, and it houses a bunch of important collections. Plus, the University of Strasbourg manages a few of the museums as well. Now, Strasbourg can get pretty busy. It's actually the capital of the Alsace region, and it's actually the official seat of the European Parliament. Now, Strasbourg is a very walkable city, and with a lot of walking, you are bound to get hungry. So it's time for our first meal in Strasbourg. Now, here's what I recommend. I recommend doing one meal that's French and one meal that's German, half-half in Strasbourg, which seems to be half French, half German. It just makes sense. So that means it's time to find a patisserie. So as I went to find a bakery, I walked past a bunch of stork souvenirs. They're just everywhere. Okay, ignoring that, I needed somewhere to eat. Now, there's nothing quite like stepping into a French bakery. And the secret to what makes everything taste so good is the simplicity and the tradition. Flour, water, yeast, salt, nothing else. No shortcuts, no weird additives. You can really taste that. Now, there was a lot to choose from, so I wanted to get something that I haven't had before, and then I saw this. This here is a triangle fruit. I think I pronounced that right. If not, is it too late now to say fruit? It had brie and some tomato stuff and I think spinach and something. And I haven't had this before, and I had high hopes. Now, I'm doing a separate video where I try to eat every single type of pastry in France, so I had to try this, and you know what? I didn't like it, to be honest. If you didn't see my Paris video, I'll just say I've eaten a lot of different pastries in France. I didn't like this one. But that didn't matter, it was fun to try something new. Now, after going to a bakery and hopefully having better luck than me, you are going to want to walk along the river. The river is absolutely beautiful. It's called the Ile, and it's like this gentle, glimmering lifeline that carves the city into islands, curves, and secret corners. It's got willow trees that are dipping their branches into the water, ancient stone bridges arching overhead, and pastel buildings reflected like watercolor paintings on the surface. Walking along the banks of the Ile feels like drifting through a living postcard. The river is like the city's quiet heartbeat, and it flows past cafes and century-old timbered houses. There's locals strolling and cyclists going by, and sometimes, if you're lucky, you might see a famous white bird. Now, I got very excited as I saw this in the distance, but when I walked up, I realized it was a swan, still beautiful, but not the famous Strasbourg bird that I was looking for. Don't worry, it didn't get on my nerve or anything. In Strasbourg, you just can't walk 2 meters without seeing a stork souvenir, and I still hadn't seen one. Now, I didn't do this, but it's also worth mentioning there are boat tours that go through the city. It looks quite fun. They seemed fully booked out, so maybe plan ahead if you're planning on doing that. But the boat tours seem to go through the entire city, and it looks really, really beautiful. But if you're like me and you don't want to do a boat tour, you can just walk along the river. And then when strolling the river, I bumped into this family here. So these here are Egyptian geese, and they are absolutely adorable. So they're native to Africa, especially around the Nile River and the sub-Saharan wetlands, and they were actually sacred birds in ancient Egypt, often depicted in hieroglyphics and ancient art. But these geese are now widely spread and common in parks, rivers, and lakes across much of Europe, including Strasbourg, where they are now thriving in urban and semi-wild waterways. Now, when you're in Strasbourg, you are bound to bump into some markets. There are markets here with food, with antiques, with books. There's just a bunch of open-air markets, which is really, really beautiful. These markets are obviously great for tourists, but I was surprised at how many locals were there. Like the books, they were all pretty much in French. And personally, I find it more fun to go to markets that aren't just, for tourists with souvenirs and stuff. But after walking around these different markets, you're going to get hungry, so now it's time for our next meal. So I went to find a bakery and walked past even more stork souvenirs. But I can't get distracted. I need some French/German lunch. And once again, there is so much to choose from. Everything looks incredible. But last time I got a French meal. And since in Paris I got a lot of French meals, it was time to try something that you can only really experience in Strasbourg and the entire country of Germany. That's right, it was time for a pretzel. Now, I got 2 types of pretzels, the original standard pretzel, which was pretty good. I personally don't like pretzels, but I still wanted to have one. But it was still very good for something that I don't enjoy. And then I got another type of pretzel, which had like cheese and another type of brie and olives and tomato. And you know what? This one I very much did enjoy. Now, after enjoying a pretzel, you are going to want to make your way to the cathedral. Now, the cathedral can pretty much be seen from every point in the city. It is that large. The Gothic details are absolutely jaw-dropping. Dozens of statues, carved gargoyles, and lace-like stonework that looks impossibly delicate from up close. But not only is the outside amazing, but so is the inside. I'd recommend going inside as well, just because it's truly breathtaking in there as well. Now, this cathedral actually held the record for the tallest building in the world at 142 meters, aka 466 feet, and it held this record for over 200 years, from 1647 to 1874. See, construction took centuries to complete, and the Gothic spire wasn't finished until 1439. Oh, and it's officially named the Cathedral Notre-Dame de Strasbourg, and it was dedicated to the Virgin Mary. The stained glass windows date back to the 12th and 14th century, painting the interior with these brilliant colors. Now, this cathedral is very important, and it's even a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Long story short, if you're visiting Strasbourg, make sure you allow time to explore the cathedral from the outside and have a look inside as well. And you can't even admire a cathedral without seeing stork stuff, stork wall art, stork, just constant reminders of storks. Still yet to see one. Now, after feasting your eyes on the cathedral, you are going to want to feast your eyes on some more food. And again, there are so many bakeries, so many different things to try, and I was craving a quiche. 2 quiches actually. I love a quiche, and so I went to this beautiful bakery and picked up these 2 here. So we got the 2 quiches and went down and sat by the river. So first I tried this tomato one, and it was delicious. Imagine like a tomato soup, but like as a quiche. It was really good. Now this next one is the quiche. I don't know how to pronounce that. That's too many vowels in a singular word. Basically, it's a leek quiche, which doesn't sound delicious. I know. Leek, eggs, milk, cheese, pastry crust. Pretty simple. I can tell you, this is one of the best things I've ever eaten. That is delicious. I don't know why it was so delicious, but it was absolutely incredible. I genuinely could have this every single day for the rest of my life. It was amazing. I still think about it. Now, walking to the next location, we saw some more swans. Look at them, they're so gorgeous. Love swans. But that's still not the bird that I'm trying to find. I'm trying to find the storks, of course. And it was baby season. Look at that, so adorable. So after that, we walked past St. Paul's Church to get to the Parc, which I'll talk about later. But this here is St. Paul's Church. It's also very famous, not as famous as the Strasbourg Cathedral, of course. And then, as I was admiring the church, I saw this. 2 storks flying exactly to where we were walking, to the park, which I'm going to show you. So I had high hopes, Obviously, these aren't incredible shots. They are very, very far away. Shout out to the iPhone though for, that's a pretty long zoom. But it was a good sign that hopefully I would get to see more storks later on. Now, speaking of the park and speaking of birds, we saw a bunch of other bird life on the walk to the park. And then I saw this female common blackbird, which was hopping around the place looking for twigs to build its nest because it is spring, which is peak nesting season. Alright, let's transition from the city to the park. Was that a cool transition? I wasn't even in the city anymore, I just had to use that footage. So this is Parc L'Orangerie? However it's pronounced, this is Strasbourg's old park. It's a sprawling green haven that's as popular with locals as it is with visitors. The parks in France are just absolutely incredible. I absolutely love them. If you haven't checked out my Paris video, check that out too. Then as I was walking, I saw this bird here. This is a white-backed woodpecker. I've never seen one before, so I was very, very happy when filming. And this isn't just a rare find for me, but it's actually one of Europe's rarest and most elusive woodpeckers. So it was very cool to add that to my bird list. So when you're walking around Strasbourg, make sure you keep an ear out because they drum loudly on trunks and on branches. After that, we kept walking around and admiring the beauty of the park. It was such a gorgeous day, and look at that fountain. This park was just so gorgeous. One thing I admire is the paths and everything seem very natural. It doesn't seem like you're walking through, a garden that's heavily manicured and, is that the word? Where it's like set up for photos. It just felt like walking through a park. I then spotted this. This here is a red squirrel. I know the footage isn't great, but still, it was pretty cool to see a squirrel. And then as I was walking through the park, I got to this road and I saw something amazing. This here is the famous white stork, the beloved symbol of Strasbourg. I was so happy to see one. And right up there is a stork. But it wasn't just one.
There are storks along this entire road on every single one of these beams.
I was pretty happy to say the least.
Hello.
So along this entire street, there were just nests on every single pole. It was absolutely incredible to see. Plus, I was lucky a few times and got to see the chicks as well in there. The storks were feeding the babies, and it was literally the whole street. And then when I walked into this other section of the park, every tree had them as well.
It's literally the entire park. They're on all of these. I just can't get them from this angle, but the entire park. It's crazy.
I really understood why it became such a symbol of Strasbourg. There were just so many, and they're such large birds.
Oh my god.
An adult white stork can stretch its wings nearly 2.2 meters. That's over 7 feet.
Hello.
So most of these storks migrate south to Africa in autumn, but they return to Alsace in early spring, making their arrival a celebrated event. Now, if you didn't know, storks often mate for life and they return to the same nest with the same partner year after year. As a birdwatcher, this for me was a really special moment, and after having seen all the stork souvenirs and stork wall art in the city, this was truly an unforgettable experience for me. It's wild to think that after traveling thousands of kilometers, the storks always find their way back here. No matter how far they've flown, each spring they return to these rooftops, these parks, and this amazing city. There's something special about this place. The old streets, the river, the smell of French baguettes and German pretzels. And maybe there's a bit of migratory pull in all of us. A longing for beautiful places, for good memories, and for the feeling of being home, even if it's just for a little while. So, like the storks, maybe I'll get to return here too. Thank you, Strasbourg.